Some people do not leave because they do not care. They leave because staying feels too dangerous. They disappear when life gets hard. Not always physically. Sometimes they stop replying. Sometimes they go quiet. Sometimes they act like everything is fine, but slowly become unreachable. They do not explain what is happening. They do not ask for help. They do not say, "I am overwhelmed." They simply vanish. And if you have ever loved someone like this, you know how confusing it feels. One day they are close. They are warm. They are present. They make you feel like the connection matters. And then, when life becomes heavy, when emotions become real, when responsibility, vulnerability, conflict, or pressure enter the room, they disappear. No big goodbye. No clear ending. Just silence. And the hardest part is that silence makes you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I ask for too much? Was I too emotional? Was I too intense? Did they ever care at all? But sometimes the answer is not as simple as, they do not care. Sometimes, disappearing is not a lack of feeling. Sometimes, it is what happens when a person has never learned how to stay present when they feel emotionally flooded. This is the psychology of people who disappear when life gets hard. Many of these people are not cold. They are overwhelmed. They may look calm from the outside. They may even seem independent, strong, or unbothered. But inside, their nervous system may be shutting down. When life becomes emotionally difficult, some people move toward others. They talk. They cry. They ask for support. They explain what they feel. But others move away. They isolate. They distract themselves. They avoid messages. They sleep more. They work more. They pretend they are fine. They disappear into silence because silence feels safer than being seen in pain. This is often called avoidant coping. Avoidant coping is when a person deals with stress not by facing it, but by escaping from it. They do not always escape because they are lazy or careless. They escape because facing the situation feels too big for their emotional system. A difficult conversation feels like a threat. An honest apology feels like humiliation. Asking for help feels like weakness. Being vulnerable feels like losing control. So instead of saying, "I am scared," they become distant. Instead of saying, "I do not know how to handle this," they disappear. Instead of saying, "I need you, but I do not know how to let you in," they act like they need nobody. And this can be painful for the people around them. Because when someone disappears without explanation, they leave other people holding the emotional weight. They leave confusion. They leave unfinished conversations. They leave questions with no answers. But underneath that disappearance, there is often shame. Shame is one of the strongest reasons people go silent. Not guilt. Guilt says, "I did something wrong." Shame says, "There is something wrong with me." A person who feels guilt may apologize, but a person who feels shame may hide, because being seen in their mistake, their weakness, their sadness, or their failure feels unbearable. So when life gets hard, they do not reach out. They retreat. They may be ashamed that they are struggling. Ashamed that they cannot handle everything. Ashamed that they are not as strong as people think. Ashamed that they disappointed someone. Ashamed that they have no perfect explanation. And because they do not know how to speak from that place, they disappear. They may tell themselves, "I just need space." But sometimes that space becomes distance. And distance becomes avoidance. And avoidance becomes a pattern. At first, disappearing feels like relief. No conversation. No pressure. No expectations. No one asking what is wrong. No one seeing the mess. But the relief does not last. Because the problem does not disappear with them. It waits. The message is still unanswered. The relationship is still wounded. The responsibility is still there. The emotion is still inside the body. Avoidance does not erase pain. It only delays it. And often, the longer a person stays away, the harder it becomes to return. Because now they are not only dealing with the original problem, they are dealing with the shame of disappearing, the shame of not replying, the shame of making someone worry, the shame of letting silence grow too long. So they stay gone. Not because they wanted to lose the connection, but because coming back now feels even harder. This is why some people disappear for days, weeks, months, or even years. They may miss you. They may think about you. They may replay the conversation in their head. They may want to explain, but wanting to return and knowing how to return are two different things. For some people, emotional repair was never modeled. They did not grow up seeing people say, "I was wrong." They did not see people come back after conflict with honesty and tenderness. They saw silence. They saw anger. They saw punishment. They saw people pretending nothing happened. So now, as adults, they repeat what they learned. When things feel hard, they shut down. When emotions rise, they withdraw. When someone gets close enough to see the truth, they run from being seen. And this is where the emotional twist begins. Because sometimes the people who disappear are not trying to abandon others. Sometimes they are trying to escape the part of themselves they do not know how to face, from their own feelings. They avoid your questions because they are avoiding their own truth. They leave the relationship because they do not know how to stay with themselves. And maybe that is the saddest part. They are not only unreachable to you, they are unreachable to themselves. They may not know how to say, "I am hurt." They may not know how to say, "I am scared you will reject me." They may not know how to say, "I feel like a failure." They may not know how to say, "I need support, but needing support makes me feel weak." So they say nothing. And the silence becomes their language. But silence is a dangerous language, because everyone translates it differently. One person hears, "I do not matter." Another hears, "They never cared." Another hears, "I was too much." Another hears, "I have been abandoned again." This is why disappearing can be so damaging. Even if the disappearing person is overwhelmed, their absence still affects others. Their pain may be real, but so is the pain they cause. Understanding someone's avoidance does not mean you have to excuse it. Compassion does not mean you have to wait forever. You can understand why someone disappears and still admit that it hurt you. You can see their fear and still protect your peace. You can love someone and still decide that you cannot keep being left in silence. Because connection requires presence. Not perfection. Presence. It is okay if someone does not have all the answers. It is okay if someone needs time. It is okay if someone feels overwhelmed. But there is a difference between needing space and disappearing without care. Healthy space says, "I am overwhelmed, but I will come back." Avoidance says nothing and leaves the other person guessing. And maybe if you are the person who disappears when life gets hard, this is not here to shame you. Maybe you are not heartless. Maybe you are scared. Maybe you learned early that emotions were too dangerous to show. Maybe you were punished for needing too much. Maybe you became quiet because quiet kept you safe. Maybe disappearing was once the only way you knew how to survive. But what once protected you may now be hurting the relationships you actually want to keep. Because the people who love you cannot read your silence forever. They need words, even small ones. "I am overwhelmed. I need time. I do not know what to say yet. I am not ignoring you. I am shutting down. I care, but I am struggling." These sentences may seem simple, but for someone who is used to disappearing, they can feel like a completely new language. And healing begins when you learn to stay visible, even when you do not feel strong. You do not have to explain everything perfectly. You do not have to be emotionally available every second. You do not have to solve the whole problem immediately, but you can practice not vanishing. You can practice sending one honest message. You can practice returning after silence. You can practice saying, "I am sorry I disappeared. I did not know how to handle what I was feeling." Because love is not only found in staying when things are easy. Love is also found in learning how to return when things are hard. And maybe the real growth is not becoming someone who never shuts down. Maybe the real growth is noticing when you are shutting down and choosing one small act of connection instead of complete disappearance. Because you do not have to disappear to be safe. You do not have to hide to be loved. And you do not have to handle hard things alone just because you once had no other choice. Sometimes healing begins with one message, one honest sentence, one moment where you let someone see you before you vanish. So if this felt personal, maybe ask yourself gently, do I disappear because I do not care? Or do I disappear because I never learned how to stay when I am afraid? And if someone came to mind while you were listening to this, maybe the silence between you has a story. But remember this, you can understand the story. You can feel compassion for the fear, and still choose relationships where people do not keep leaving you alone with unanswered questions. Because healthy love does not require perfect people, but it does require people who are willing to come back.